The intended audience of this video has a relatively typical hearing range and range of color perception. If you don't, you might enjoy it, but some things I say won't apply to you. Those of us who are neurologically unusual are very used to the question, why can you do one thing and not another? This video will be my all-purpose response to that question. I am going to show you 3 colors. Please identify them to yourself in whatever system of color naming is most familiar to you. You must identify them while they are still visible and without reference to color charts. First color, second color, third color. I am going to play you 3 tones. Please identify the notes to yourself in whatever tonal system is most familiar to you. You must identify them while they are still audible and without reference to other notes or tuners. Now here are the answers, or at least the answers for English and the standard Western tonal system. Blue, red, yellow, B flat or A sharp for 166.16 Hz. F 87.31 Hz. C 1046.5 Hz. Well, that was easy, wasn't it? Everyone knows their colors and notes, right? Wait a minute. What do you mean you don't know the notes? I don't believe this. How can someone with otherwise perfectly normal hearing not know their notes? Look, it's this simple. Colors are from light frequencies. Notes are from sound frequencies. Give me one good reason a person with good vision and hearing should know one, but not the other. I'm sorry, but you're getting too far-fetched for me. I'm not going to buy that you know your colors, but not your notes. It's ludicrous. You must think I'm really stupid. Actually, if you couldn't tell a note just by hearing it for 2 seconds, I do believe you. But it still seems strange to me, because it's easy enough for me to identify the notes that quickly. I learned the notes the same way I learned my colors. I really can't tell the difference between knowing one and knowing the other. To me, these skills are the same sort of thing, just one with light and one with sound. If I weren't by now accustomed to the fact that almost nobody else seems to be able to do this, I really might react the way I pretended to react earlier in this video. I might also think it strange that you could seem to identify the note sometimes but not others. For instance, if you could identify it after hearing a note that you could compare it to and knowing the name of that note, I might decide that you were only pretending to be unable to identify notes the rest of the time. After all, the reasons that your ability to perceive notes changes would not be immediately obvious to me. If you were the only person you knew who had your note identification deficiency, you might not understand why you could only identify notes some of the time either. You might even question whether your difficulty with this was real. Or you might know you needed that reference pitch, and even ask for it. But people might not give it to you, even though it's easy for them. Because they might not believe you really need it, they might think you were asking for special treatment. Thus, even if you were an excellent musician with good relative pitch, you might be shut out of many opportunities in the music field. If you are wondering, perfect pitch does not confer any special musical ability, except maybe in a cappella singing. I'm mediocre in most instruments, If you understand the point I'm trying to make, then maybe you will be able to apply this to situations when you meet someone whose pattern of skills is surprising to you, someone who can do something, but not something else you could swear is closely related, or someone who can only do something some of the time, someone who can speak eloquently but not read, someone who can sing but not speak, someone who can speak but not hold a conversation, someone who only speaks sometimes, someone who can perform some movements flawlessly, even gracefully, but can't move at all when nothing is there to cue them into it, someone who can work a video camera but not reliably boil water. There are definite and real neurological explanations for these combinations of skills and difficulties, the same way there is a neurological explanation for most people's ability to name colors, but not musical pitches. These are not contradictions or paradoxes, they are just less common, and therefore less expected. So think twice before you assume you know how every ability works, and how it connects to every other ability. Common sense in this area is frequently wrong. Neurologically unusual people end up having to deal with equal amounts of skepticism and curiosity. Imagine having to prove yourself every time it came up that you could identify colors but not notes, or to explain in great detail how it works. We often deal with this on a daily basis. During a lifetime, that gets old. Not all of us want to explain or defend ourselves. We just want accepted what we can and can't do, or what barriers we need removed in order to fully participate in something. If we do explain one part of our experiences, it does not mean that we have opened up every aspect of our experiences for people, and it does not mean that we'll always explain this. Imagine having to spend a large part of your life explaining a deficiency that I bet you right now never think about. Don't worry, I know that people with pitch identification deficiency are real people too. I used to work with them, you know. I know all about them. Which is to say, keep an eye on any tendencies you might have to patronize. In closing, my answer to how can you do one thing but not this other thing is, how can most people identify colors but not pitches? And my answer to how can you do something some of the time but not all of the time is, how come many people can identify pitches but only if they hear a reference note first, or hear them for a really long time? And by the way, if you did identify those pitches correctly, you might want to participate in the study of absolute pitch. http://perfectpitch.ucsf.edu. I did, and it was kind of fun, and I learned stuff.